Welcome one and all to Friday's second Friday's Art Talk, hosted by ArtPush and facilitated by ArtPush also. And today we have yet another fascinating, great show, very varied, and I'm pretty sure you'll find this as interesting as I'm going to. So without further ado, I'm just going to give you a rundown of what the show will be like. And then after that, we'll jump straight into the show. I must let people know that if you have any questions, the chat will be open. So I want to let that be known from the get-go so that people don't sit there frustrated with their questions. You know how it is when you have a question that's bugging you. The chat will be open and you can always put your questions in there. That being said, we're going to pay the bills. And then after that, we introduce our panelists and then get into the show. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, or thanks so much for watching this if you're watching it in the future. All right, so our show, I'm Victor, by the way, I'll be your host. We do have guests in-house who I'll introduce later. What I would like to mention is that this is part of Friday Art Walk, and you'll find all the previous shows and this show was done on FridayArtWalk.com. So if you do want to see more information about the artists, you will find it there. Right now, we are going to thank our sponsors, Flax Art and Design and Alameda Municipal Power. We know things are opening up, but I just want to remind people that Flax Art and Design stepped in right in the middle of the pandemic. And each time I say that, it strikes me emotionally that when people were struggling, they chose to give more. They totally resonate with the spirit of the artists who just give out their creativity. And at the Flax Art and Design, we want to thank you greatly for that, because it meant a lot on many levels. And secondly, we would like to thank Alameda Municipal Power for also stepping in and helping out with the art show in such a great way by sponsoring it. The audience will be muted during the interview. All panelists will stay unmuted. Audience Q&A will open at 8:15 and we'll have about 15 minutes of questions and answers then. And now we're going to go into our panelists. And you must forgive me, once I introduce the panelists, I've got some housekeeping to do, so my eyes might stray from the screen. I am paying attention, but we are going to go straight into it and introduce our panelists and the work that they are going to talk about, where you can see the work. And then after they've all been introduced, we'll get into the questions. All right, so firstly, we have Robert Graf. Robert, am I pronouncing your last name right?
That is correct.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks, buddy. And then we have Aaron Zonka. Have I got that right, Aaron?
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you. And Vera Tour. Am I pronouncing that right?
All right. It's like you're taking a tour.
Oh, beautiful. All right. Fantastic. So I have asked my panelists who will go first, so don't feel bad about Robert because he's volunteered to go first. And I'm so happy, Robert, that you joined us today. And I would love for you to talk about your work and where people can find it and as we go through. But firstly, we would like, for those who haven't met you or don't know you, could you tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, my name is Robert. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I did move here in the Bay Area in 2010, so I've been here for just about 12 years now. And I'm currently residing in Oakland, and I'm very much involved with a lot of the maker and art communities here in the Bay Area. So this is a little bit about me. I'm into all different kinds of art media, photography, pyrotechnics, sewing, neon, glass artwork, and all that stuff. And what we're going to talk about today is some photography I was working on during the pandemic in 2020. First, I just wanted to thank ArtPush for hosting these talks. They've been really insightful, inspirational, along with bringing the art community together. I wanted to start by recognizing a local artist, author, and provocateur here in Berkeley by the name of Franklin Greenwald. I had met him outside at the Berkeley Bowl West grocery store. And one of his art pieces was on the subject that art is the state of the race. In other words, the human race. So it's really interesting how art is sort of a reflection of the world around us. And that message really resonated with me and applies to some of the work that I've done too recently that I'm calling out now as well. In this photography, the photographer is the mind's eye, capturing a moment in time, what it is. What it is what is on the photographer's mind. And that's both conscious and subconscious, or not conscious as well. And it's how the photographer feels and interprets the moment and determines the resulting captured image. So there's sort of a objective reality of photography, and then there's sort of the subjective reality. This piece is September 9th, 2020. This one is about distress. Anyone who has been here in the Bay Area on that day can recall the sights and associated emotions with the visuals. So what do we see here? There's a feeling that something's wrong.
Robert, just hold on, Robert. I'm so excited that I just don't want to run out of things to talk about when we get to the art piece, but this is so exciting. This is so exciting. Thanks so much for giving us that. And I feel like at this moment, this is when we'll say, and now we'll take a commercial break and we'll see you next week to continue Robert's story. All right, so we'll get back to Robert and talk about that, his work, because I love the way you've prepared for it, and really, yeah, this is going to be exciting. So thanks. We'll get back to you on that. Don't go away. All right. So we're going to move on to Vera now. Vera, could you tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Hi, Victor. My name is Vera Tour, just like you're taking a tour, as I mentioned. I am Russian born. I would say American-made artist, and I'm based, I haven't been based in Alameda for the past 15 years. I say American-made because I had never had a clue that I would be some sort of an artist or do art or anything related to art. But it just so happened that when I moved to California at 25 years old, it just inspired me in so many ways to start painting. And I started it and I continued. And since then, I think I have found my true happiness, my happy place, which was pretty much the search until then. I was born in Russia, was raised in Russia and partially Kazakhstan. That's where my grandparents settled down after the World War II. And so I was exposed to like a village living in the summer, somewhere in the mountains, and then urban living in Russia and a Soviet school. When I turned 21, I left the country and the opportunity arose. The opportunity came up and I moved to the United States. And from there, I can just tell you that it was all about really a spiritual search for me. It's like seeking yourself, seeking what you are, what you can do with your life. And it was never really about money or about this. It was always just seeking for your true nature. And with that development of experiences, spirituality, philosophy, whatever came along, I think the art became sort of a byproduct of that. And that's exactly what I'm doing now. I'm continuing on that path, and I cannot see myself or envision myself anymore without doing the art, because this is the only way that allows me to express the unexplainable, unexpressible in a visual form. So I would say my art is the reflection of that spiritual path that I was on.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Vera. We'll get back to you. I picked up some nuggets here. So I'm glad that from Robert and from Vera, I've already picked up some nuggets here. So we're going to have a very lively discussion. And thanks for your openness to all of you. It's really nice to talk to people who are open and free. So I appreciate that. All right, Aaron, welcome to the show. And could you tell us a bit about yourself and where you're from?
Yeah, I have a less cool origin story than these guys. I'm from the Bay Area. Yeah, I grew up in Menlo Park. Feel like I'm from the just about when like tech became an explosive thing. So I like to think of myself as from like the hippie Bay Area, like which is just generally groovier. What else? I've always thought of myself as a creative person. I wanted to be a cartoonist when I was a kid, and then I wanted to be an artist, and now I'm an illustrator. Gotta just kind of like knew what I wanted to do, I guess. I think it's in probably more recent years been a bigger struggle when I'm like, oh, I have to like pay bills and like provide for my family and like also make art. Like, how do you do that? That's been my struggle, I think. And also just like trying to figure out this like balance between, you know, being an illustrator is sort of like you're getting paid to make something for like someone's paying you for your craft. And I'm a big fan of sort of like kind of the place where craftsmanship and artistry like combine, and sort of the differences between the two and the common grounds, and sort of like what is being an artist versus what is being a craftsperson. Just because I think I often get paid for my craft, and art is sort of like a different thing to me. It can sort of be merged together, but I often sort of think of them as very separate things. But yeah, I'm excited to share and discuss.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Great show it will be. To the audience, to our guests, this will be a fantastic show because we've got some really interesting nuggets here to go back to. All right. Thank you all for sharing that. And now we're going to go into what inspired your work in the art book. Right. And at this point, I'll ask our wonderful technicians in the back to get Robert's work ready and cue up Vera's and then Aaron's. So we'll start with Robert. So you can start talking while they load the work. What inspired the piece in the book, Robert?
Yeah, so some of what I do in my artwork is just asking sort of the question, like, what are we seeing here? Sort of taking something that is normally something we see every day and making it sort of seeing it in a sort of an unordinary context. This piece here is called September 9th, 2020. And this particular piece is about distress. So anybody that's been in the Bay Area on that day recalls what this was like here actually. And so the question is, what do we see here? There's sort of a feeling that something's wrong. Something's not right. Perhaps a feeling of discomfort. And what we see, what appears to be natural organic elements, elements of what is normally pleasing to see and be around the canopy of a tree. Yet it contrasts and is directly juxtaposed with which brings feelings of anxiety and despair. Following the image from left to right, there's a sense of sort of definition, light and clarity. But as we move further to the other side of the image, the texture disintegrates into something that becomes unrecognizable and erodes into the darkness. So the question is, you know, what can we take away from this? What does this mean when we're looking at this? Seeing how something is in the ordinary can become unordinary. Is it merely the particulate of the smoke in the high atmosphere casting an orange glow from the usual daylight sun? Or is it the state of the world? The time of the fires in the California and on the West Coast, coupled along with the global warming and the global pandemic, along with racial justice, has led up as well to the 2020 election. So there's a lot of tension and stress. There's this idea about the human physical and mental health. And the idea is that there's a saying that if you don't make time for your body, it will make time for you. It is easier and much less painful to act sooner than later. For example, yesterday it was 87 degrees Fahrenheit in Berkeley, California, September 7th, 2022. And so the question remains, shouldn't we treat ourselves as well as treating the earth the same. In other words, we are an extension of the earth, and the earth is an extension of us. And if we can take care of ourselves, we can also take care of the planet and everything else around us. So I think the thing that I like to leave with this piece is that art is sort of the state of the race, and that we have the power of our creative art, sort of our visions, to be able to affect change. So art is really powerful in that we can help change the world. So I want to say that we can do that. And thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Robert. Wow, that was very well expressed. And I do remember the day, the 9th of September, 2020. And you really articulated well, especially how deep you dive into it and the linkages you make to it. So could you speak a little bit about the idea of how minimalistic it is, yet so profound? For example, they basically two tones in it. There's a tone and a color. Could you speak on that?
When I was looking around, I thought I could, sort of take this perspective of what we were seeing and maybe make it something that we would normally see, like, hey, maybe we're looking down the street or looking at the street lights that were turned on, for example, which were also unusual. But as I was walking around the neighborhood that morning, in addition to be really scary and unusual, I was looking upward, and I was looking up at the trees, and I noticed this really stark contrast that I thought I wanted to highlight. So I feel like this really is bringing the contrast between what is happening and kind of the direction where we're going, like what could be and where we're headed. So I like this idea of like seeing these tree definitions in the image, but I like how that is contrasting and it's going into another area that is sort of like if we don't do anything, this is where we're headed. So I like that idea of like that transition from one place into another. So I felt like that was a strong visual element in this piece, is going from one place to another. If we, kind of like if we don't do anything, this is kind of like the contrast of it.
Beautiful, Robert. Thank you so much for that. And as you were speaking, I was reflecting on what you said earlier, that we're an extension of the earth. In other words, we're one with the earth. And as I'm looking at your image, it's like there's a fiery background, but what do you usually use to make a fire? You use wood, right? So without the wood, you wouldn't have the fire, So it's interesting that those are part of one. They need each other to coexist. So I love that idea, the unity and the tension that's happening there. Thanks so much, Robert.
No problem.
Go on. I think you're going to say something.
Oh, no problem. It's just, we have the fires, but the trees themselves are the things that are burning down, and putting those two right together, but not obviously seeing the fire, but more of a symbol of that.
Beautiful. I'll get back to you if we have more time. I would love to discuss the whole idea of balance when it comes to that, because it looks like things are out of balance here. But for the sake of time and to keep the program running, I would love to go on to Vera and talk about your piece in the art book. What inspired your art piece? Thanks again, Robert. That was beautifully put. All right, on to Vera. What inspired your art piece? And
Yeah. All right. It's funny that this is the piece that my art is kind of known for, because it was one of the very raw and very unrefined paintings. I painted it in 2007, the year that I moved to Alameda, which was 15 years ago. So it's very rough. And yet, it's kind of a signature piece for me. And the title Samadhi came to me actually recently. From the beginning, it had several titles. It had a title of Daughter of Stars, Cosmic Bride, that's what it went by, and also Juggler. But Samadhi kind of just it's almost like somebody whispered in my ear, oh, this is Samadhi. And then I looked it up. And in Sanskrit, it sort of means a transcendental meditation through which you achieve one of your consciousness with you're kind of blending it with the universal consciousness, and it totally just kind of like landed. And that's what that is. I'm a Libra by the zodiac, so I meditate, and I go through chakras that are described in Buddhist and Hindu energy systems as a chakra system. That so that's reflected in there as well. If you like look at the whole picture, it also represents a left and the right hemispheres of the brain, and the stars represent the neurons that are interconnected, and how all kind of comes together and works. A lot of my paintings do represent macrocosm and the microcosm blended together, because the universe is kind of a holographic thing where a small something contains the same information as something big and large, and my paintings represents that. What else can I say about it? Yeah, it's pretty rough. I didn't want to deal with the legs, so I just turned it into a skirt, and it was kind of like very fast. It took me about 2 weeks. I think it's the fastest painting I've ever done. But you will see that those themes kind of like drifting through my artwork, the macro and microcosm, the string theories, the basically what I'm trying to do is figure out on my own through the however wonderful teachers that exist and will exist, is just life. What is life? Why we're living in such a dichotomy, duality? Life is a paradox, and how to deal with all of that. And just for me personally, I think doing art is to find that inner peace that is missing from this reality. And meditation helps, and I think it's also very much reflected in most of my paintings. I'm a seeker of truth, peace, and love, like everybody else here. Most people that I know are also true seekers, and my imagery is very archetypal. It's very easy to relate to, because we all looking for the same things in this life.
Beautiful. I've got so many questions and comments, but I don't want to, to hog the discussion. But what I would love to do, though, is play the devil's advocate here, if I may use that term, and say, you say you're a seeker and you felt something was missing. Now, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. This is not an attack. Right. But how do you know there was something missing? Missing from where? Where does that question, that yearning come from?
Right, or maybe missing for me, because as you live on this planet, you experience war, you experience, why is it all these questions about why in the same time and space that people occupy, somebody is abundant and thriving, and another one is living in misery and poverty, and so all of these things. And I think the missing piece is the peace. I know it sounds weird, but but that peace is to be found within. It cannot be found outside of yourself, and that's what I'm constantly in search for. I want to say I found it, and yet boom, something happens, and it's been happening. And it's been a crazy ride for a couple of years there, and it's not getting any better, seems like. And this is the painting and the figuring it out. It all comes to looking for the peace within oneself and trying to kind of balance it and trying to figure it out. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Every artist that I know is a thinker and is a philosopher in that way. And yeah, I'm sure you know.
Wow. That was profound. Okay, you guys are blowing me away already. This is a lot. Thanks so much for that. I wish we could go deeper into that, because I think a lot of people will find value in what we're discussing here. More like Robert mentioned, that it's not just an image. Dig deeper into it, make connections, see yourself in it. And now you're talking about seeking and the whole journey, exploring and finding that peace. I love the statement that you said, that peace does not come from outside, it comes from within you.
I didn't say that, but yeah.
Oh, I thought I heard that. Anyway,
well, yeah, but it's somebody else's somebody else's phrase.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Vera. And to our dear audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you're watching this after it's been recorded, you can also put questions in the comment section, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to you on time. If not, you can go to FridayArtWalk.com, where you can find information about the artists, and you can reach them from there directly, because we have their contact information there. So please visit FridayArtWalk.com if you would like to learn more about the artists. We've got Robert, Vera, and Aaron here today, but we got a lot of other artists who were featured on this show. Without further ado, we're going to move on to Aaron, and he's going to talk about his piece, Creatures of California. So, yeah. Aaron, what inspired the piece?
Well, to tell you the truth, it was like I worked for this company that a friend of mine owns called We Are California Grown. I was doing a bunch of stuff for him, and I was like, man, I really just want to have like complete creative control over a project, but also get paid to do it. So I was like, hey, what if I do this series of California-based creatures for you, and like I will charge you like half as much as I normally would, and like we'll both share the rights, and we can just like both use the images however we want. There's also like clearly it's like 12 images I got for like one piece in the art book, so like really like try to get as much bang for my buck, I guess. It's not intentional, but it worked out that way. But yeah, so I mean that was like the beginning of thinking about it, but the like inspiration for it was I'm really into there's these like 90s sticker like books of like weird monsters that just like look so like funky and fresh and have this like weird 90s vibe that I really love. And that was what originally inspired me to do sort of this kind of like almost like sticker book style series of creatures. I also really love like when butterflies or insects are displayed in a case where you have like the kind of like all these like amazing little things, little trinkets. That's always been really inspiring to me. So this is sort of like that, but with monsters of California. I'm just trying to like figure out what are sort of the archetypes of creatures that would live in this land. And trying to sort of get a broad swath of sort of like what California is in terms of like personality and landscape and all this stuff, trying to smush it all together in these characters that can be sort of these icons for what we do here, I suppose.
Beautiful, Aaron. Really beautiful. So my question, the first question that comes up for me is, where does the inspiration come from for the creatures?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, like, I love to draw. I draw all the time. So like, I think a lot of the inspiration, like, I mean, some of them are just kind of like a golden gate, or oh, that's like just like an obvious pun with the Golden Gate, like that's clearly gotta be one. And it's sort of started from there, but it was sort of trying to like take archetypal ideas and sort of smush them together with California themes. And I'm never like inspiration or ideas is never something that actually I struggle with. I always have ideas. It's sort of like getting to the end of the road of an idea that is the hardest thing for me. which is sometimes helpful when I have like a client who's wanting something or I'm getting paid for a thing, because then I'm like, well, I'll get to the end of it. But if it's just for me, I often I'm like, well, that's a cool idea. I'll draw that in my sketchbook and then it will be there for the rest of my life. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but there you go.
It does. I would like to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which was the difference between art and craft. Could you just speak? Could you just elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to me, and it's something I've thought about a lot, just as a person who loves to create things and think about things. And the thing that I think, the way that I feel like I define those two is art is the idea, like art is just your ideas. And as soon as you actually start making a thing, it becomes a craft. And then you're a craftsman of the idea, which is art. And I think like just having those things be slightly different to me, I think that there's just like compartmentalizing those things is really helpful to me to sort of just like access what it is that I'm doing. And I think like inspiration and art is just like this, like, wow, like it's just kind of like everything's kind of like open and you get to kind of explore and like find nuggets of truth or nuggets of bullshit or whatever it is, and kind of like put those somewhere. But once you put them somewhere, it becomes a craft. And I have like this very deep love of sketchbooks, both in using them and in seeing other people's sketchbooks. And I think one of the things that I love so much about sketchbooks is it's like the closest to the idea as you can get. And there's something like really fresh about that. Whereas I feel like when I end up finishing a product, it's gone through so many phases of being like a sketch and then being sort of like a flat painting and then being sort of a more layered painting, that there's like, you know, I love a finished, crafted, honed, get those highlights on their pieces. But there's something about like fresh, raw material that's so cool. So yeah, that's sort of how I think about the two.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thanks for answering that, because what I see in your work is a lot of discipline. So for me, what I'm getting from that is the craft is the tool, is the vehicle for you to be able to articulate those ideas successfully. Because we've all seen when it's not well executed, it doesn't give you that punch. So I really appreciate seeing the meticulous discipline and just the mastering of the craft. It's amazing. I asked the question just in case you're wondering, because I've had students who looked at our previous shows and they found them very useful. So when we talk about art and craft, you know, a lot of people don't have no idea what we're talking. So thanks a lot for elaborating on that. Yeah, I'd love to jump into the chat before we go into our last question, which is about the pandemic. And it's 8:03. We've got about 12 minutes to discuss, so we've got time, and then we'll open it up for an open discussion. So in the chat, we do have quite a bit. Can you add any questions for the artists here in this Zoom chat? Okay, I think I missed that one. I always thought of September the 8th, 2020 as the day without a sun. Indeed, never mind that word. Powerful piece, Robert. And that's from David. I like in Vera's piece, the root chakra is dissolving into flames. Thanks a lot, David, for commenting. And then Yolanda says, the missing piece is the peace. I love that, Vera. I love all the local culture references, Aaron. That's also coming from Yolanda. David says, Aaron, these are incredible. I sense a slight comic book influence. Is there a swamp thing in there? Yeah. There we go. And Pam says, were these illustrations ever paired with writing? I would love to see these with some kind of lore or story. The creatures are so fantastic and they really suggest story.
Not yet.
Feel free to answer any questions there. So Aaron, do you have an answer to Pam's question?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any stories with them. I mean, I think about them maybe while I make them, but I haven't written anything down. I actually recently just like put out this, I can grab one here. This book of like creatures that I made. Which I'm actually I have an art opening tomorrow, but you guys can look on the website about that. But yeah, that's definitely something I think a lot about. I love comic books, and so story is definitely a big theme to me. Like I'm always listening to books on tape also, and I'm like, this is probably like at least like 5 or 6 books on tape that I've absorbed while I made this. So definitely story is like going through my head, but being concrete about it is definitely something that is harder for me to do. Writing is a struggle. Like I don't know that I'm bad at it, but I kind of hate doing it.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, so I would like to say the chat is still open, but we will have an open discussion at around 8:15. We're going to go into our last question, which is how has the quarantine impacted your work? At this point, I would also like to suggest that you may also talk about how has it impacted you as an individual, because I know a lot of people have been impacted by it. So if you don't mind sharing that, we'll start once again with Robert. And take it away, Robert. How has the pandemic impacted you?
Yeah, it had some impact on me. One of the things that I had noticed that I was spending a lot more time on social media, and you can kind of go down that rabbit hole. I am an introvert, so for me, being inside the house or around here was not so much problematic. But I did spend a lot of time on social media, and there was just a lot of tension around the time that was happening, both with people, with their philosophies, with masking, vaccinations, the 2020 general election, just everything that was happening was like taking in all this like energy that was ultimately not great. So I actually had decided to pull the plug on the social medias, and I had deleted my accounts. And what I found is that I was spending more time with people and having actual more meaningful conversations than having the social media interactions. And so that was kind of like a bad thing leading into a good thing for me personally. So that was really nice. And also at the time, I'm a stress eater. So I had also gained quite a bit of weight too. And since then, now I'm been working out more, getting outside, and so it's been a good path forward for me. So great time during the pandemic to also make artwork as well. So being off of social media, I had actually more time to make work. So that was great. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that. I muted myself because I got background noise in a lot going on. Thanks so much for that, Robert. And we're going to move on to Vera. And same question for you. How has the quarantine, actually the pandemic and the quarantine, how did it impact you and your work?
Quarantine, yes. I think I went through the same dynamic as a lot of other people too. At first I was like juiced, woohoo, I get to paint a lot. And actually the whale painting that Jessica was asking about came out of that time where I actually had time to sit down and focus and paint for a few months. But it got old really quickly. Like I was actually tired of painting and bored, and I really needed a social interaction. And I've been working in the restaurants my whole life, so there's always a lot of movement going on and a lot of talking, a lot of associating and hanging out, and that was missing, and it really impacted me emotionally. So I think a lot of people went through that. It does cause emotional stress for a lot of people, and I'm not an exception here. Business-wise, it really put everything on hold because I have just started doing the art fairs, like Alameda Art Fair and local art fairs, and I just I just barely dipped my feet in it, and I started feeling it around, and boom, everything closed down. So, that's the worldly whale, the quarantine painting. You can see it's totally void of people because everybody's inside. Nobody's outside. So yeah, that's the theme for this painting. It's funny that kind of brought it up together. The whale represents the earth, of course, and the moon and the sun archetypal images, and I always put this little something evil in there from folklore, and it's a feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl over there. If you like look into it closely, you will see it, and it's getting penetrated by the ray of the sun, which means that the sun, the good, the light always wins over the darkness. And so that's what came out of it, and a couple more paintings. But yeah, my art fair stuff was totally ruined and in shambles. So I'm starting to get back on track with that. I am doing apparel based on my paintings, and that's been about several years of experimenting and investing money into it, and just kind of just doing it. And so it's going to come back when the art fairs start back up again. So yeah. So there's this about the pandemic. It's, there are both aspects. There's a business aspect and there is emotional aspect, and all of that. It was just an experience. And I think if you talk to me a couple of years ago when it all started, I probably would be a hot mess. I'm feeling much better about it now because we're coming out of it. Yeah. Hope that makes sense.
Victor,
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing so candidly about that. Yeah, talking about art fairs, I'm happy to say there's something in our announcements that you'll be excited about, so stay tuned. I would like to jump to, so we're going to finish off with Aaron. Sorry about that, Aaron. I didn't mean to ignore you. Same question. How has the quarantine impacted you and your work?
Yeah. Well, I think it, like, the work itself, I don't know that, like, I used to teach in person and now I teach online, and that's definitely been a big change in just like the dynamic of kind of being with people and having like a sense of community. I think it definitely has impacted there was this side of me. Well, okay, so right before the pandemic, I had a daughter. And also, like, my grandmother, who I'm really close to, had like a really bad fall. And so there was this kind of like two very like kind of serious shifts in my life of like people that I cared about. And like I had to be really careful because I was like hanging out with an elderly person before there was, vaccines. And I also had this like kid I had to take care of and deal with that was like new, and it was just like breaking me because I couldn't sleep. So like it's hard, like that time was so just like full-blown tumultuous, and so it's hard for me to like say like, oh, it was the pandemic that made me feel this way, or if it was like this that made me feel this way. But it was like definitely one of the hardest times in my life in terms of just like getting to the end of your rope and then being like, oh fuck, there's more rope, I gotta keep going, god damn. Just felt that a lot. But in terms of like output, I think art was sort of my escape from a lot of that stuff, and I ended up like generating like a huge amount of work, which was great. Like I felt really good about the things that I was making, but the rest of my life felt like just like this struggle. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Aaron.
Yeah.
I can relate to the lack of sleep. Oh my goodness. Yeah. But I'm impressed that you became more productive with all these things happening around you. That's amazing. And also like to highlight something I picked up when you were speaking. You said that, let me try to phrase it correctly. You spoke as though you were the observer of the situation. You said, I can't say it's the pandemic that caused all this, but all these other things were happening in my life. So I love the fact that you didn't, narrow it down, but you're like, hey, things are happening and there's a pandemic. So that was interesting. Just thought I'd mention that. All right. I would love to jump into the comments before we open it up. Before I do, I would love to make the announcements now, just in case people have to leave, so that we don't miss those. And panelists, don't go away. I still have to thank you too, so hang in there. So announcements will be Alameda Summer Art Fair and Maker Fair is Sunday, July 3rd. There's something remarkable about saying that because we haven't had the art fair in so long. So I'll repeat that. Alameda Summer Art Fair and Maker Fair is Sunday, July 3rd. Please mark that in your calendars. It will be fantastic to see all this amazing community we've built. I mean, I've met some people we've had on the art show in person, and it's been remarkable. Just that human touch, like Aaron said, that community aspect, the feeling of it is fantastic. So July 3rd is the Alameda Art Fair. Hope to see you there. Vendor registration opens in April on the 15th. So that is actually next week when vendor registration opens, and you can get registered at Alameda Art Fair. That's pretty easy. .com. So AlamedaArtFair.com, or you go to Friday Art Walk and you follow the breadcrumbs. Just remember, it's the AlamedaArtFair.com. Catch this show and past shows at FridayArtWalk.com. Open to at this point, we'd like to open it up to the artists, to the panelists, and give them the opportunity to share any art-related announcements they may have as soon as I'm done with the comments. So actually, let's go to the comments last so that we give room for this. So artists, panelists, firstly, thank you so much. And if you have any art-related stuff, please go ahead and share it. Events happening. Oh, you've got a book, right? Aaron's got a book.
I've got a few things. So tomorrow, I have an art opening. It's at like UMA Gallery. All the information is on the website. It's from 6 to 8. I'm putting this book out. There's only going to be 60 copies ever. And it's like a series that I did of character drawings in 1 month. I did one every day. And then I'm teaching some workshops also at that same thing. And yeah, you can go to the website to check out all the details. There's like links and all that stuff. But if you want to take a poster drawing workshop with me or a sketchbook workshop with me, I'm teaching those a few weekends this month.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. And your opening is at UMA Gallery this Saturday, correct?
Yep, tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So if you want to catch Aaron, I'll try to make it there too. It's on the 9th of April, 6 to 8 p.m. At UMA Gallery. All details you can find on Aaron's website, which you can find on FridayArtWalk.com. So all the artist information is there. Please do follow through if you'd like a copy of one of the 60 books, or you want to see part of his work, or just stay in touch with the artist. Thanks so much for that, Aaron.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. All right. Anyone else with any announcements? What's going on?
I can just say that that art fair that you mentioned on July 3rd, I will be there in Alameda with my booth of apparel, tapestry, like the one behind me, backpacks, t-shirts. I have all the stuff that's based on my artwork. And also there will be one in Novato on June 18 and 19. Saturday and Sunday. I will be doing the same thing for those 2 days. That's pretty much it for the announcements. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
All right. Robert, any announcements?
Yeah, I'm a member of an art and maker space here in the city of Richmond. It's called Filma Collective. That's FILMA Collective, filmacollective.org. Sort of a creative sanctuary here for me. I'm able to work on a lot of projects. So we have this thing every Tuesday night. It's kind of like Art Tech Night. If you want to come out, we have a meetup for that. Or if you want to be a member or want to have some private space, become more of a member of our community, you can go on the website and get in touch with us. We're having a really good time here. We're pretty new too. We started just a few years ago, just year before the pandemic started.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that, Robert. And you heard it all. If you want to be part of a community, be able to access a space, do get in touch with Robert. All his information will be on FridayArtWalk.com. You can follow the breadcrumbs from there. That's totally fantastic. And at this point, I would just like to really give my heartfelt thanks to the artist community. As we come out of the pandemic, it is people like you, I'm talking about you, Robert, Vera, and Aaron, who make this happen, because you've chosen to share so freely and so openly about what you do. And we really appreciate that, because it's very rare that we get artists to talk and express themselves so freely and openly, and enrich the world in doing so, and show the world that, yeah, the pandemic could be happening, but I'll still create, like Aaron said. Or there's nothing wrong with searching, like Vera said. There's nothing wrong with being a seeker. Yeah, there will be ups and downs to it, but that's part of life. Or going back to what Robert said, when events happen, where are we taking, what's the lesson we're taking from that? For example, in 2020, what did we take from that? So I say all this to say, thank you so much for enriching our lives tonight, and also enriching just our spaces, because now we have these beautiful images locked in our minds, and we'll never be the same again. With that being said, I would like to say thank you to ArtPush for making this happening, believing that we could do something even in a hard time. I would like to say thank you once again to Flax Art and Design, and your generosity is, there are no words for it. So I'll leave it at thank you. Alameda Municipal Power, that was a powerful move. We appreciate it. That being said, have a good night if you're leaving us now. Otherwise, join us for the discussion, because we're opening up the channel so people can ask questions. While people get their questions together, I would like to go back to the chat and just see what people have written. ArtPush says, ArtPush asked a lot of questions, so I'll just pick one. Aaron, do all the creatures have names?
Yes, yeah, they do.
Okay, so ArtPush and Aaron, you can carry on that conversation, because there were 12 of them there.
Yep.
We won't go through that. All right.
I'll list them in the chat. Hang on, I'll do it right now.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. And then we go on to ArtPush again. Robert, I'm curious how long you managed to stay off social media?
I've been off social media for about 7 months right now.
Wow. That is impressive. And ArtPush says you're muted. No, that's a joke. I would like to, and then Pam says, I love the way that the buildings and the trees and the mushroom all look like they're all outgrowths of the earth, the whale. So that's on your piece, there. I would also like to mention that Pam is a good friend of mine. She has been on this panel. On the very first show we did, she was on that very first show we did. And Pam and I go a long way. She also runs a podcast called Art Heals All Wounds. So if you're interested in that, do get in touch with me. She's a great person to know. And Pam, thanks for being around. With that being said, let's open it up. Any questions? The panelists can also ask each other questions. What, you guys got nothing to say to each other, but you got something to say to me?
Thank you names.
for having us.
I have one more question for Aaron.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever heard of a book called Beetlekin the Brave?
Is that about like the pirate? It's like a pirate.
He's not a pirate. He's a weird little beetle-looking man.
Oh no, I haven't. I'm gonna write it down.
Yeah, but your creatures. He goes on this quest, and he encounters a lot of very frightening but wonderful creatures. I love this book, and I traumatized my children by reading them the
great.
book. But I loved it when I was a kid.
Awesome.
And
I'll totally check it out.
Your creatures remind me of that, because they're all very distinctive and very kind of creepy, but sort of funny, but mostly creepy in a weird way. So
well, thank you. I will absolutely check it out, and I appreciate that.
Thank you, Pam.
Hey, Aaron, that one dude that you did in your creatures, with the guy that's made out of the tree and he has the green hair,
Yeah.
the old guy, isn't
Yeah.
there a name for that creature? I've seen
Oh,
it
an
before.
ent is what, like, it's like a J.R.R. Tolkien, like tree folk, or an ent is what I think
An
they're called.
ent is what
Yeah.
it's called? Okay. Because I know somebody else, like I saw it recently, somebody else had drawn it, and then he said it was like everybody knew that
Yeah.
character, but I didn't.
Everybody knows Jessica. I don't know why you're talking.
Send me the names for those characters, Aaron.
I'm writing them down. There's a lot of them, so you have to give me a second.
See what you started. Oh, geez, what a beautiful discussion. I mean, to come from spirit to the physical, it was amazing. It was like a journey through the mind, really, because the physical aspects of it was looking at the physical world, but also the craft of handling the physical. And then the spiritual element was thinking about who we are, where we are, and how we interact with it, but also the seeking of it. The question that baffles me is, where did we come from if we feel we're lost now?
Yeah. When were we at home?
Right.
We're always in the last place you look.
I don't think we're lost.
Uh-huh.
We're never lost. We're never disconnected from the spirit, and the physical is the extension of the spirit. So there is nowhere to go. We're never lost. We just created the way we make it seem to ourselves that we're lost, that we're disconnected. None of it is true. It's just it's just a matter of finding that reconnection.
You ever
That's
see the
ultimately
movie?
what everybody's journey is. Huh?
You ever see the movie Buckaroo Banzai? One of the lines in it is, no matter where you go, there you
There you
are.
are.
There you are. That's one of the things I love to say. It's like, wherever I go, there I am. By
Beautiful.
the path of least
Where are
resistance.
they trying to get to? You know?
It's from that movie,
Yeah.
Buckaroo Banzai.
Buckaroo Banzai. I'll
Buckaroo
have to watch that.
Banzai, yeah. Buckaroo.
Is the art in the park returning next month? Art in Nature, I guess it's called.
We'll have to see.
Yeah,
It's not scheduled yet because the host is still.
out of town, and we might, I don't know. We haven't. Yeah,
It's
we
not going
haven't
to be
figured
this
it out
weekend,
yet.
no. Sarah kind of runs that, and she's been out of town, so but I believe they're heading back now. So hopefully next
They
month.
keep saying they're heading back.
Thanks.
Are you guys saying things twice, or do you have an echo?
Yeah, I hear an echo too. What's up with that?
Just somebody's speakers up real loud.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, it stopped now.
Yeah, completely.
Banana
So,
slug.
so
Now it's disturbingly
There's a
quiet.
lot of
Oh,
them.
we got all the names.
Yeah, those are all the names. They're in chronological
wow.
order.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron.
That's
You're welcome.
great.
So Jason, would it be okay if I opened up a discussion about the fate of this show, or just leave that for later? Would that be okay to just hear
No.
some? It's okay.
I'm
All right. Never mind, guys. I didn't say anything.
I'm totally
Anything
kidding.
you want to do is
Yeah.
okay with us, buddy.
Yeah.
I pray it goes on.
I just started.
Oh, I see. Where have you been? This has been my saving grace through the pandemic. Trust me, there were days when this was my true north. It was like, oh yeah, what's happening? It's the third, yeah, it's the 20th. Wait a minute, it's art talk in a couple of weeks. Yay, so it really gave me this sense of something to look forward to, but mostly to connect with people. So
Right.
it meant more to me than I ever thought it would. So
Yeah.
thank
Do
you
we
all
know-
for making it happen.
Do we know how many we've had so far? It would be interesting to say, announce and say this is our 25th or this is our 30th,
Oh yeah,
show.
like an episode
Because
number.
it's been that many, it has.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would
You
be
could
very
look at the
interesting to just
YouTube
start out
channel.
by saying that at this point. This isn't a new thing. We've been growing this for
Yeah.
now, it's been going on. It's a real community,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What do
It's
you
amazing.
think?
I mean, it's just amazing. You reflect on, it isn't just an hour here and now, because things that are said and shared are carried forward into your mind, and you think about it, and the conversation is retold in your mind, and so it lives, you know, it really has a life beyond the hour that we're here. So it's really, I mean, I still think about and talk about to other people about how some of the most profound things come out of these talks, you know, and they're so generous in sharing very deeply personal experiences, and how art, you know, had been their home, you know, the place they could go when everything else is falling apart. So those things just carry on and live. They have a life, you know.
Beautiful.
One of the things I was talking to the panelists about earlier was that we were talking about the quarterly, doing the quarterly second Friday art walks in person at the studio. And we're like kind of roughing out what that schedule would look like. I haven't posted it yet, but I like the idea of bringing us together in person now that we can do that again, and doing group shows as well, and that kind of stuff.
Is that what you were talking about, Victor? That, yeah. So we had thought about. So one of the things that we were considering was, we do this like the second Friday. It's all been the art talk for the past 2 years now, and what we were thinking was possibly having each quarter, like the first Friday, not the first Friday, the second Friday, okay, like so on a second Friday, we actually have the art walk and actually have an in person, you know, with the studios open and stuff, and then the other two we do art talks.
Right.
But also throwing the idea around of maybe trying to produce a live version of this at the studio, like a talk show where people could come to and then the artist could actually have the art showing in the studio and, you know, produce it, you know, like I think that would be a lot of work, but I think it would be pretty amazing too. So I don't know, you know, it's.
Well, I think you could, yeah, I mean, you could set it up so you have just a period during the opening of an interview kind of period. And then after that, people could just mingle and connect again with the artist on their own, you know. I think it would be a nice way of bringing the two mediums together.
Do you have internet at the office, at your studio?
I mean, I think we have enough to do streaming. So we could stream it. And I mean, we could set up an area at the studio, you know, like with a desk and the chairs, like make it like a talk show, and you could be like interviewing. I think it'd be pretty awesome.
Need a band.
It might want you a late night career, Victor.
You never know. You never know. I would love.
You're a very impressive interviewer, I can tell you that. My gosh.
It's all the people, you know, it's all the beautiful souls that I get to talk to. You know, you can't help but dive into this amazing.
Yes, lots of people could help by not saying anything much, you know, but you catch the very heart of what's being said, you know, and that's not something anybody can do at all.
No.
And you're really gifted in doing that, you know. It's just, and that's why we get these wonderful discussions, you know, and sharing. So
thank you.
Credit, because you certainly deserve it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
You're the star of the show.
Oh, please, please. The star only shines brighter in the darkness. So
that's my grandfather's name.
Oh, that's a nice quote.
What the hell is that supposed to mean, Victor? I'm just kidding.
Don't get me started there.
I think I think it would be so much fun. Can't you see us doing the live thing, like all in the studio, like people? I think that would be. I think people would the people here? Would you guys come? Would you like to come to the studio and experience that kind of, you know, this in a live setting? All right,
Yeah, I think they'd really be great too. And in addition, there might be three-dimensional pieces of art that are difficult to do over Zoom. So being able to be in 3D in person as well as 3D art, like sculpture, could be really interesting.
Like some light sculptures, maybe?
Yes.
Some wormholes.
Robert does amazing light sculptures, by the way.
Oh, really?
They do all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, are these the sculptures we saw in the around Lake Merritt?
Yeah, they
Yes,
were
Autumn Lights
Yeah,
Festival.
I remember. Yes, that they
Autumn
were.
Lights.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, it's almost my bedtime now, so I've got to say goodnight to all you people. But I just had a thought: if the artists could just bookmark their interview when it comes out, so that you can share it, spread it out there. It's really amazing to hear you guys talk. It's just phenomenal, And I like Cheryl said, we're enriched every time we do this. And you guys have just done this amazing job tonight. Just my takeaway today is keep your eyes open, keep searching, and hone your craft, because everything is possible. That's what I got from it tonight. So with that being said, I'm going to be a happy campus leaving, and you all have a good night.
Thank you,
Hi,
Victor.
Victor.
Thank you, Victor. Thank you so much.
Victor.
Bye.
All right, we can
Bye.
talk about it. We can talk about it when he's gone.
Well, I won't leave then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Victor.